What is going on, everyone? Chris with Journals, Comics, and Pop Culture. I have a video that I'm doing today that I was very hesitant to make. I've stayed far away from any type of controversy of this matter on my channel for a while. I'll talk about that a little bit while we do the video today, but I want to approach this matter as balanced as I can because I don't want to get into a political argument or one side of an extreme and sideline any of my viewers or subscribers or anybody that's watching this. I want everybody, no matter what your opinions are on certain elements of this controversy, I want you all to be able to watch this video, listen with an open mind, and share your opinions, even if you may not agree with me, maybe you don't agree with other people in the comment section. The only thing that I ask of everyone is if you're watching and you comment, you do so respectfully with an open mind, like an adult, and let's try to have a conversation where we might be able to find middle ground. So, what is this video about today? Bleeding Cool is kind of trolling fans, but at the same way, they're kind of making a point, and I understand why they're making this point. So before we get into it, if you aren't subscribed to the channel, folks, please take some time to do so. Check out the links in the description below. But let's get into this. What did Bleeding Cool do here? Headline: DC cancels heterosexual Robin comic after 17 issues as sales fall flat. Now, let me preface by saying Bleeding Cool is by far a credible site, a credible source. They're much more of an opinion-based blog spot, in my humble opinion. There's a lot of stuff that they wrote articles on that they've jumped the gun and kind of either taken certain issues out of context or sensationalized other issues. But what they're doing here is they're basically writing an article about a factual piece of news that happened, and that is DC canceling the Robin book. This is the Robin book that starred Damian Wayne, obviously son of Bruce Wayne. It states the launch issue for the series from 2021 was around 60K, but estimated sales for issue 3 from Comichron went down to 49,000. By issue 17, the title dropped out of the top 100 and estimated to be selling around 20 to 30,000 comics a month. So that's a substantial drop. Now, we do know that many titles, even successful ones, drop off a lot after that number 1, but you can see even after the first few issues, it's dropped off a lot. So DC has canceled it. Now, what are they doing right here with this headline? They are obviously sensationalizing the issue of gender and how gender plays a role in characters. They're calling it the cancellation of the heterosexual Robin. And why are they doing this? Well, because it is a fact. There's a group of individuals, whether it be fans or whether it be YouTubers or anybody that's has a blog that's on the internet as a quote unquote voice within the community or industry. They talk about the fact that there are these agendas being pushed and they don't work. They do not sell. When a character is made to be homosexual or LGBTQ, it is forced, it is wokeism, and nobody wants that stuff. It doesn't sell, and you're simply pandering. Now, we can look to the fact that I believe the Jonathan Kent title was canceled or, had its run and it's being stopped. Whether they plan for that or not, I don't know, but there's already been YouTubers that are on the whole anti-woke controversy or lingo, should I say, that are saying, look, it didn't work. You made Jonathan Kent LGBTQ. Nobody wants that. That's why it's canceled. So Bleeding Cool is kind of saying, oh, well, I'm going to throw that back in your face. I do think it's clever. Again, I'm not saying I agree with it or don't agree with it. I think it is clever because I do believe they're making a point, and I'm going to get to that. But let's read a little bit of this article here. It states, naturally, the only conclusion. Now, actually, before I go on, everything about this article is cynical. All right? Naturally, the only conclusion that sales were so low is down to the heterosexuality being blatantly forced down people's throat by way of a straight love interest for Damian Wayne in the character of Flatline. This comes after a number of forced propaganda straight love interest characters that young Damian Wayne, courtesy of DC Comics' straight propaganda unit, has been imposing on readers over the years, including Raven, Marie, I don't know if I'm saying that right, Grayson, uh, Emiko, Queen, Jin, Cara Danvers, etc., Stephanie Brown, a lot of straight character relationships, right? They further go on to say this continues a wave of straight propaganda in recent years in comic books, including Ben Grimm marrying Alicia Masters, the Human Torch finding a soulmate in Sky before shagging Doctor Doom's wife, Victorious in the Fantastic Four, which already contained a straight marriage, and Reed Richards and Sue Storm. Spider-Man just asked out Black Cat this week. Oh, spoiler, because I'm not there yet, darn it. And even on the TV show, She-Hulk just smashed. Daredevil spoiler. All right, let's go on. Traditionally, the character of Robin has been seen as a queer comic book character, both by the likes of Dr. Frederick Wertham in Seduction of the Innocent, on more recently with Tim Drake getting a boyfriend, of course. So you hear the tone here. Now I'm going to skip here and I'm going to go down to this piece right here because it does bring up the Superman Jonathan Kent run. But it says here, naturally, the YouTube comic book commenters will be celebrating the cancellation of this comic book 3 months ago as proof that DC Comics has failed its traditional base of gay comic book readers who have been reading the comics for decades by trying to chase after the straight dollar who don't even actually buy comic books. Either that or they will ignore the story completely, concentrating on the cancellation of Superman, Son of Kal-El, which seems to be happening a lot, which consistently sold more copies than Robin, and somehow blame said cancellation on the comic book having a bisexual lead, which they will keep referring to as a gay lead, call it woke, without actually acknowledging the definition of the word, or that it was canceled one issue later than Robin, and that it also has spun off into a new miniseries. I'm going to be a voice of reason for you all. I'm not here to mock one side of an opinion or to champion another. But it goes back to what I said when the Tim Drake coming out as LGBTQ, as bisexual, came out. And there were certain other YouTubers that said, this is lazy writing. They went on a 20-minute rant, and at the end of that rant, they said, it's lazy writing, but I haven't even read the book. I haven't even read the story. And I came out and said, look, folks, I don't want to diminish your feelings or opinion on the context of the character, right? The attributes of this character. If you have an issue with it, please feel free, state those issues, but back it up with an actual argument. Don't just say it's lazy writing and then go on to say, I haven't read the book. I haven't read the story. How can you critique the writing if you haven't read the story? You can't. In the analogy I used was that would be like Siskel and Ebert giving a movie 2 thumbs up or 2 thumbs down and saying, yeah, well, we're giving it thumbs up or we're giving it thumbs down based on the trailer. We haven't even watched the movie yet. We just know that it's lazy directing. You can't do that. Read the story and come at us, if you're a YouTuber, your viewers or the community, with a substantiated argument that you can back up with fact and your opinion. And I will listen. Believe me, folks, I do believe that. I mean, look, people want to use buzzwords to say, oh, it's pandering. Anybody that's trying to sell a product is pandering to somebody. They are. Plain and simple. Anybody that sells a product is pandering. Avon, Mary Kay, you know who they're pandering to? Middle-aged women. You got wrinkles, use Mary Kay. Use Avon. Everyone, they're either pandering to an image, they're pandering to an emotion. Victoria's Secret, it's an emotion. They're pandering to women that want to feel sexy. They want to embrace their sexuality. It's pandering. Beer commercials, they're pandering. You see beer commercials pushed during Sunday football games. Why? Because they're pandering to football fans that are sitting at home watching football, drinking beer. It's pandering. So let's put the buzzwords aside. If somebody wants to introduce an LGBTQ character, of course, they're wanting to tend to an LGBTQ market. And I will be the first to say and to agree that sometimes it falls flat. You know, it's like you get, if you want to bring politics into this, right? I think you get a lot of people that consider themselves liberal and they say, oh, well, I care about, minorities or I care about social justice. But it's like, what have you actually done to involve yourself in educating yourself to those causes? And I think that's why a lot of people that speak on it, maybe they're tone deaf, okay? But let's go back to this point that this bleeding cool argument is making. Jonathan Kent, the Superman title, Son of Kal-El, was canceled, but it led into a spinoff. So was it canceled because an LGBTQ character wasn't selling, or because they had plans and they want to market and they want to pander to the emotion of another number one issue? I mean, look at what Marvel's done for years now, for over a decade. You know, you let a title run for 12, 18, 20 issues, and then you cancel it and you bring a new volume in and you start at number one again. They know that that's money. People buy into the hype of a number one. But nobody is sitting here saying this, nobody is covering this. I don't want to say nobody, I'm sure there are, but I don't hear that same crowd covering the fact that this is a white, straight, heterosexual character that obviously was tanking in sales worse than Son of Kal-El. And it's now canceled. And it's canceled without, at least right now, we don't know. We don't know if there's a spinoff or anything else going on. I mean, it's been 3 months, right? So where's the rhetoric? And that's what I'm trying to say here. So I'm not trying to completely eliminate that sometimes people do things and they try to market to certain sub-markets of the industry, of a genre, etc., and it's tone deaf and it falls flat. Snowflake is Safe Space. The new Warriors that came out a few years ago. I think the characters, or the creator that created the characters, I think he thought he was doing something good. I think he said, I think representation matters, and I want to make these characters and make this happen. I'm doing my part. It was tone deaf. This was a middle-aged white male that probably never even did he even speak to the LGBT community. Did he even talk about how can we bring in representation in a positive way that actually represents the real world of LGBT individuals? I don't think so, and it fell flat on its face. I get it. It happens. The issue with the Miles Morales what if Thor, like, I don't think there was, ill intent behind that. I think the creator was just trying to, make this character somebody that could be identified by a certain minority group, but I think it was tone deaf. Okay? It happens. I don't think they're doing it, though, because they're trying to push this crazy. There's no conspiracy theory here, at least at the individual level. So what I'm trying to say, for all those folks that jump on this anti-woke, pandering, virtue sing, all these buzzwords. And what I mean by when I say buzzwords is, guys, you guys jump to these buzzwords without really having an argument, and they become prejudicial. Let's argue, and I want to give a big shout out to Max MVP. This guy, I don't agree with everything he says, but anytime he brings up an issue that borders that quote unquote woke, and I think that's a buzzword in and of itself. Anytime there's inclusion, representation, he speaks on it. And he has an issue with a lot of it. But when he talks about it, he did a video about She-Hulk and having issues with She-Hulk. And he didn't even say woke the whole time. And I applauded him for that. I didn't agree with everything he said, but I applauded him for that, because by not saying woke, he's staying away from the buzzword that merely it feeds our emotions and our reactionary emotions, instead of feeding to saying, I actually have a point and I have a valid opinion. I'm going to back it up with certain facts and et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I mean by buzzwords. We can't just use buzzwords, because I think when we use buzzwords, we hear them and we believe them as just this kind of, summed up thing that riles our emotions. If you don't have a real argument, it's really tough to have a stance to say that LGBTQ characters aren't selling. Wokeness that isn't selling. Well, folks, where's the argument? This is a Batman title, pretty much, right? I mean, it's not a Batman, but it's in the Batman family. We know that Batman titles have been DC's biggest sellers for years. For years. You could go back even into the 80s when DC was like running itself into the ground. The only title that was keeping it afloat was Batman and Detective Comics. So for me, it boils back down to, we have to stop. I'm not saying that those people that believe that sometimes these are issues when it comes to representation, stop generalizing, though. That is my advice to you all. We can't generalize everything as saying, oh, it's woke nonsense, buzzword, buzzword, buzzword. Because then you lose validation when it really is that, when it might really be that. For people that say there's always an agenda, a woke agenda that's ruining comic books, but I don't read modern comic books. You're shooting yourself in the foot, because I read plenty of comic books. I read plenty of DC titles. I read plenty of Marvel titles, and I've been reading a lot more independent titles, mostly Boom and a couple Image. And there is hardly any political agenda in any of it. In any of it. In the majority of it, it's non-existent. But guess what a lot of it is? Bad writing. Bad stories. I love Spider-Man. My favorite character. I'm always going to read Spider-Man. But I actually, this current run, I'm fingers crossed for, but that Nick Spencer stuff was garbage. What Dan Slott was doing for years was garbage, but never once did it cross a political agenda line. But it was garbage. Could it be that sometimes it just boils down to the fact that it's bad writing that is taking effect on these comic book sales? And the answer to that, in my humble opinion, and not only is it opinion, but I can back it up with fact, is yes. Absolutely. I want to end this video on this note. Comic books aren't being ruined by a conspiracy theory of agendaists. Okay? Comic books have a big problem, though. Their writers are indeed out of touch with what sells. I think sometimes they might try to say, well, let's bring in new readership. Okay, let's bring in LGBTQ readership, but it's not genuine and it doesn't work. Let's bring in new minority readership. Let's bring in new, young girl or women readership, but it doesn't work because they're just either they're still not good writers, or they're not getting good people around them to sit, and say, okay, how can we write a story that actually speaks to the characters involved, right? And I think that's what it boils down to. They're trying to reaching out. If you listen to what Jim Lee said a couple years ago at DC Fandom, saying, we do have to branch out. We want a world market. And in a world market, it goes beyond religion and race. When we introduce Middle Eastern characters or Indian characters, we want readership from the Middle East and India, not just Indian American or Middle Eastern American people. If we introduce South American characters, it's because we want people in South America buying our comic books. That is good marketing. But you still have to tell good stories. So while, look, I don't believe that Bleeding Cool, I'm not one for riling up riling up the pot or boiling the pot by being antagonistic. And I think if we look at the safe space in Snowflake, no matter that individual creator's intent with those characters was, it was antagonistic. Because although I don't believe in calling people names, the whole Snowflake thing and all that, like, I don't believe in calling people names, no matter if you disagree on politics or what. But that was antagonistic, and that's not how we solve problems. It's not how we bridge the gap of inclusivity. It's not how we do it. And I think Bleeding Cool is riding that fine line here with this article. It's like, it's gonna fall on deaf ears because it's gonna trigger people. But I hope I brought this to everyone's attention today, so you can go past that. Say, look, whether or not Bleeding Cool is trying to rile people up, they make a point. They bring the data, folks. They bring the data. Let's stop focusing on the buzzwords and just hold artists and these publishers and the editors and the creators and the writers accountable for telling good stories, no matter if the character is white, black, brown, straight, gay, man, woman. It doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, I will say, representation matters because it's a reflection of the world around us. Not just because it's a cliche, tagline that I can use for my political agenda. No. We want real life characters in our stories that are relatable. But we have to do it telling good stories. With that being said, folks, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Again, I want everyone to be respectful. You can express your thoughts by doing that, and I want to hear your thoughts. Thank you guys for watching. Again, if you aren't subscribed to the channel, please do so. Be well, and until next time.